Okay, we're now moving into our 8th episode. And this episode, we're now moving away from the Quran itself, and we're moving away from the references to it. Looks like the Muhammad that is there is Jesus. We're now going to look at Islam as well. We're now going to look at the Sufi. I think that's what you want, Mel. You're going to be talking about Sufis and how it is the Sufis that actually elevate to this person, Muhammad, to someone that's divine. And you're saying that this could also be Jesus as well. So I'm not convinced. Try to convince me. You've got about 10 minutes to do so. I'm going to give it over to you. How in the world is it the Sufis have elevated him to such a divine status? Over to you.
Okay, so let me just share the PowerPoint with you. Okay, Jay, so we're going to take a look into the Sufi traditions now. So the material that I'm going to be sharing with you is from Edward Sell, who wrote in the 19th century. And the main argument he makes here is that, according to sources that he looked at, God's light united with Muhammad's body before the creation of the world, and Muhammad is treated as divine. So this, I'm sure, will be a shock to many viewers, including Muslims, that Muhammad is being treated as divine. But it shouldn't seem that all surprising, because if you think about the Shahada is actually putting Muhammad on the same level as Allah. You have two things you have to accept, is that perhaps you could quote the Shahada, because I was just got on my head, sorry.
Sorry. Shahada, which is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. There's only one God but God. And the praised one, Muhammad, the praised one, is nothing more than the messenger of God, is the translation. That's the Shahada that you're referring to. That is the statement of faith that all Muslims must use. It's also the one that we see on the Dome of the Rock and on the coins and on the protocols in 690s that was introduced in this. But at least that's the first time we see it introduced by Abdul Malik himself.
Yeah, and if you ask Muslims about this, they say, "Oh, there's nothing strange about this. Muhammad is just a human being. He's not divine or anything like that." But when you look at the sources that we're going to see here, you actually get a different picture. So we have here in yellow here, the general idea is that long before the creation of the world, God took a ray of light from the splendor of his own glory and united it to the body of Muhammad. So long before there was a human being called Muhammad, God supposedly united his light with Muhammad, the body of Muhammad. So that's what they're suggesting. And this is very similar to the idea of Jesus as the Son of God, light from light, true God from true God. It's very similar.
Hey, let me just come back to you. This quote from Edward Sell is from the Sira of Muhammad. This is what text? What text is he quoting from?
So this, I believe he's taking various quotes from different parts of the Sira. So this is a quote from his book, and the title of this section is called Nuri Muhammad Dami. Sorry, let me try that again. Nuri Muhammadi, which means the light of Muhammad. Okay.
All right, so these are quotes by Edward Sell. These are not his quotes. These are quoting other texts. And in this case, he lifted out of the Sira. For those who don't know what the Sira is, that's the biography of Muhammad.
Exactly. So if we, for example, if we focus then, it says, I will make the members of thy family the guides of salvation. But below that, says there in blue, Muhammad said, the first thing which God created was my light and my spirit. So before the angels were created, before the universe was created, according to this text, Muhammad's light and his spirit was created. This, to me, can only be interpreted as being Muhammad is being presented as divine. Okay. It says also, in due time the world was created, but not until the birth of Muhammad did this ray of glory appear. It is well known to all Muslimans as the Nuri Muhammadi, the light of Muhammad. And it goes on into the various types of light. Now, you may remember this picture from an earlier episode, I think probably a year ago or 2 years ago. where we're looking at the depiction of Muhammad in art. And this was one where Muhammad's face was hidden. And we were suggesting at the time this indicated that they're treating Muhammad as a divine figure. And this is a painting of Muhammad's ascension. It's from 1540 AD, but we don't find these type of illustrations where Muhammad's face is hidden until the 16th century. Prior to that, Muslims were quite open about showing Muhammad's face, but then all of a sudden they're hiding his face as if he's a divine figure. And this fits with the Sufi writings. Okay, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I mean, you're right. We did a whole episode on this, doing and showing how the art on Muhammad changes, and in the 16th century, suddenly he becomes a divine figure. Therefore, they can't put his face. This is the Miraj, the story of the Miraj on the back of the Burak from Mecca all the way up to Jerusalem, going up to the seven heavens. And so that would suggest, therefore, that this Sufi influence of this divine character, Muhammad as a divine character, is introduced in the 16th century, which should not surprise us. Absolutely. We see this in art that supports what you're finding in the Sira references, or in this case, whatever itself is finding in the Sufi material.
Yeah. So if we look at this other example from his book, the book's title is called The Faith of Islam, which you can find. You also find similar material in Cole's book, Muhammad and Mohammedism, and the references there at the top. So just feel free to look up these books, confirm, that these quotations are from these books. So the Muhammad of pre-existence was created of divine light. Okay, when he had stood as a column of light before God. Now, if you remember in the Old Testament, a column of light was like a prefigurement of Jesus. Okay, so that's interesting. So, column of light before God for 1,000,000 years in primordial adoration. God created Adam from the light of Muhammad. Or according to another passage of the Tafsir, he created Adam from the clay of divine might, from the light of Muhammad. What does that suggest to you, Jay?
Wow. So he's also the creator. Muhammad is divine as light, but he's also taken on divine characteristics only God himself can create. So Muhammad must be God, equal with God.
Yeah. And it's interesting. If you look at the attributes for Muhammad, there are, I think it's 101 attributes for Muhammad, and you compare them to the 99 attributes for Allah, you'll find that there's a very common mixture there. There's a commonality between the two as well, which again goes to support the idea that there are certainly some Muslims that view Muhammad as a divine being of some kind, very much similar to Jesus. And we also have the following. Not only Adam is formed from Muhammad's light, but the whole universe participates in this emanation of light. The light of the prophets is from his, Muhammad's light, and the light of the heavenly kingdom is from his light, and the light of this world and of the world to come is from his light. The spiritual masters and divinely desired and spiritual disciples and God seekers also take part in this successive light emanation, though there are two somewhat parallel passages concerning the source of this emanation of light. In the Tafsir, the divinely desired directly emanate from Muhammad's light, while the God seekers issue from Adam's light. Tustari says God created the Muradin from the light of Adam, and he created the Muradin from the light of Muhammad. So it's definitely suggesting that Muhammad is divine here. And it's interesting, the chapter in the book Muhammad and Mohammedism by Coel, he has given the title for the chapter, Muhammad, a parody of Christ. So that's kind of similar to what we've been saying all along here, that we saw in the Quran. You have a depiction of Muhammad as Christ, and here we're seeing further evidence of it in the Islamic tradition. And finally, we have this quote. In the Kitabi Awal el Qiyamat, we read the following singular account. It is recorded by tradition that God first created a tree with 4,000 branches and called it the tree of life. Then he created the light of Muhammad. in a veil of white pearl of the shape of a peacock and placed it upon that tree where it praised him for 70,000 years. Interesting the use of the word or the words white pearl, because according to Saint Ephrem, the white pearl is a symbol for Christ. So we've seen a lot of overlap here where Muhammad seems to be depicted like Jesus. So leave it back to you, Jay.
Now, here's a case. This is interesting because here's a case where, when you look and what Edward Sell is doing, when you look at all these references in the Sira, the biography of Muhammad, in his book called Faith of Islam, and also the Kitabi Ahwal al Qiyamah, those two writings, when you look and see what he's saying, what he's coming up with, just by going back to the Sira, and just by unpacking what it's saying, most Muslims reading that would not really understand what the inferences are. Those of us who come from a Christian background, who have the Old Testament as our antecedent and as a body of works that unpack who the antecedent to the Jesus before he came in the first century, know that there are many divine references to him. We talked about the angel of the Lord in the last episode. Every time you see the angel of the Lord, he is creating, he is changing, he is very much part of creation. And he is also the one who is there interceding and is there with mankind, walking and talking in the cool of the day, wrestling with Jacob. He is the one that also leads the children of Israel through the desert for 40 years as a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire during the night. So all the way through, we as Christians, when we see these reference to angel of the Lord or these preference of creator of light or someone who is divine, it is very much Jesus Christ. These are the theophanies that we always refer to. So when we read this coming out of the Sira, we can immediately identify this because it's part of our theology. Muslims need help here, and this is what you're doing. You and Edward Sell, of course, you're just quoting Edward Sell, but he's come to the same conclusion. When you look at these references in the Sira, that Muhammad is the light and the spirit before all of creation. Well, who was the lightness and the spirit before all of creation? That only could be God himself. And we know that these are references to Jesus in the Old Testament. That would make sense that when here it finds itself appearing in Sufi writings that are in the 16th century. And Sell continues and refers to the divine light, who is the creator of Adam, that he pre-existed. Those are all, again, references to Jesus Christ. He is the divine light. He is the creator of Adam. He is pre-existed, and he is the creator of all the universe. The same applications we know for Jesus Christ from the Old Testament are now being attributed to Muhammad in his biography. And then you end with the white pearl, that the white pearl, Saint Ephrem in the 4th century, he knows and he says and he clearly claims that this white pearl is Jesus Christ. So over and over again, we're seeing that this Muhammad, even in the Sufi writings, this word, this name, this title, in this title that we now know is the title for Jesus in Syriac literature. Also, it is now found in the Quran, the 4 references in the Quran. It looks like in the Sufi writings, it also refers to the person of Jesus Christ. Of course, Muslims will not agree with that, and I'm sure we're going to get some come back and they'll say, no, you're interposing, which you're not, we must do. And we need to be careful that we don't eisegete the text. But when you exegete it properly and you look and see what the author is trying to intend, you need to understand that whoever the author is of these writings, they would have had an awful lot of Christian overlay in them. And in many ways, I would suggest, as you're suggesting, and as Edward Sell is intimating, that these authors were actually doing just that. They were referencing this Muhammad probably as the person of Jesus Christ, because certainly the Muhammad of Islam was not pre-existent. The Muhammad of Islam was not divine light. The Muhammad of Islam did not create anything, wasn't able to do a miracle during his lifetime. The Muhammad of Islam, who came from Arabia and supposedly wrote the Quran, never was the white pearl, and he did not create Adam. So you can see in every one of these cases, this could only be Jesus Christ. So good stuff. Thank you so much. Not everybody's going to agree, but I love how you put it out there. You put it as white paper. Let's see where people run with it, and let's see if they agree with it or not. So over to you, people. You know where to write. Let's see what you say. This is Jay and Mel, 3,000 miles apart. Over and out.